The short story has established itself firmly as a popular form of literature in modern time. There are several reasons for this. One of the major reasons is modern hectic life when people have no time for long epics or novels. Development of magazines and periodicals has also contributed to the development of short stories. Almost all magazines, literary, and even otherwise carry short stories. Some even claim that time will come when it will displace novels. This, in fact, is a false claim. The novel and the short stories are two different types of fiction and they have their own identities. Let us see how novel and the short story differ. First of all, the short story is just a snapshot. The novel is like a movie. The short story cannot exhibit life in its complexity and variety as a novel can do. Second, in the same way, you cannot have fully evolved, developing lifelike characters in the short story as we find in the novels. The characters in the novel often become unforgettable. In short story, the character often remains hazy or vague, however impressive it might be. The short story writer cannot give his philosophy of life as the novelist can do. We have the depth of philosophical contemplation in novels. In short stories, this isn't even possible. In short story, we meet characters for a few minutes as if on the way. In the novel, we see them, know them, and befriend them. Therefore, they are lifelike, more real, and more powerful. Fifthly, we often see that some short story writers have written stories in sequence. This shows that writer wants to escape from the formal limitations of the short story and attempt to opt for the wider canvas. Thus, we must remember that a short story is not a rival to the novel, it is not even the substitute for it. It must be expected as a kind of prose fiction which has grown side by side with the novel. Let us then have a rough definition of the short story. According to Edgar Allan Poe, the short story is a prose narrative. In other words, it is a piece of prose narrative which can be read at a single sitting. Dr. J. Berg Astonwin defines short story in the following words. A short story is brief, imaginative narrative unfolding a single predominating incident and a single chief character. It contains a plot, the details of which are so compressed and the whole treatment so organized as to produce a single impression. This beautiful definition is in fact quite satisfying. It contains almost all the traits of the short story. Thus, we may fabulate the characteristics of the short story under the following heads or points. First is brevity. The most important characteristic of the short story is its brevity. It is not a novel in summarized form. In fact, its span is quite limited. It differs from the novel not merely in the length but also in motive, plan, and structure. Imaginative. The short story, like other forms of literature, is a fiction. It is not imaginative, it is not a documentary prose. Single incident. Unlike the novel, it must have a single incident, not many incidents. A good short story concentrates on a single event or incident and not on the life story of a character or characters. Single character. The short story focuses on the incident that takes place in the life of a single person and not many. There may be few characters, but the focus is always on one character whose life is described. 6 is compressed or organized plot. The plot of the short story must be compressed and organized. There can be room for digressions. W. H. Hudson says that there are some stories in which there are more events of longer durations or even many characters, but a writer succeeds in creating an organized effect. Therefore, it is a unity of impression which is more important. Maupassant Irving and other great writers have succeeded in creating such single effect in spite of large sequence of events and wider span of time. Sixth, the unity of impression. Therefore, we must remember that the most important character of the short story is unity of impression, and this can be treated when there is one and only one informing idea, and this idea must be worked out to its logical conclusion. There must be singleness of aim and directness of method. The attainment of unity requires perfection of workmanship. The writer should narrate the account of events in such a way that will hold the reader's interest by its basic truth. He should concentrate on the struggle or the conflict faced by the character or characters. Poe says that a short story has to invent such incidents and tell them in such a way that a desired effect is produced. Because of its brevity and concentration, the short story demands a greater care in all the details of the composition. Great short story writers of the world have written wonderful stories. Writers of Russia, America, France have also made this form very popular. In India too, admirable stories have been written in English, Hindi and regional languages. Thank you.